Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It. With me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed already. I couldn't do this without you. I hope that you are admiring my new look. I've actually had a very bad allergic reaction. I still wanted to appear on screen, but it's making my eyes sting really badly. So I thought I'd put the sunnies on in order to actually prevent this. So you'll have sunnies for the next few videos. I do apologize, but you know, my eyes and my skin will hopefully get better very soon. So it is Doctor Who Sunday, and that can mean only one thing. It's time to look at a Doctor Who episode that was voted by you, the viewer, my subscriber. Now make sure that you actually are subscribed to the channel so that you can vote on the latest poll that is on the community page, and you can go and check that out a bit later after this video has finished. This is going to be a really good one, actually. I really enjoyed writing this one. It took me quite a while to write it. It took a couple of days, and we are doing the lowest rated episode today. I was asked if this was going to be a theme that was going to be continued, and I can do that. It's actually quite interesting exploring the possibility why an episode in a series was the lowest rated of that series. It is a Colin Baker episode. He is my favourite Doctor. You all know that. King Colin is the best, and I will not hear otherwise. No, I'm joking, of course. You're perfectly entitled to like whichever Doctor you absolutely like. And this was his first lowest rated episode of his entire series. Well, his entire first series. We won't be including the Trial of the Time Lord in this because that is a serial, so it's a whole different ball game altogether. Now, the episode that was the lowest rated wasn't Time Lash, believe it or not. It was the Two Doctors, and that in itself is actually really shocking. Now, the Two Doctors was written by Robert Holmes, directed by Peter Moffat, and it aired between the 16th of February to 2nd of March 1985 to 6.5 million people in consolidation. I got that figure from The Mind Robber. And this episode, part of it was also filmed in Seville in Spain. The Two Doctors is a multi-doctor story involving the second incarnation and the sixth incarnation of the Doctor. The second Doctor and Jamie get sent to see Dastari in order to stop Kurtz and Reimer meddling in time travel. It does not go according to plan, of course. It never does in Doctor Who. And the Doctor gets overpowered and Doctor napped, leaving Jamie behind on the space station. Meanwhile, the sixth Doctor, who had been enjoying a spot of fishing much to Perry's boredom, returns to the TARDIS with her. He ends up collapsing in the TARDIS with a vision of his former self being trapped. It then becomes a race against time to save his past self from becoming an androgyne and stop the Sontarans from getting to grips with time travel and using his symbiotic nuclei in order to provide power for the time travel machine. Now, at this point, when it was released originally, we had already had multi-doctor stories. Now, I do actually like multi-doctor stories, but I find that they could be quite full of, well, bravado and things like that. I will say this about the Two Doctors. This does have a little bit of the bravado that we have come to love with the other multi-doctor stories, but in this case, the Two Doctors does something that the other multi-doctor stories does not, and that is play with the Doctor's own timeline and put him in mortal peril of not ever existing within the universe. And that, we all know, in Doctor Who can be absolutely catastrophic because we need the Doctor to be the hero and to save the day. Now, it doesn't stop him from being big-headed, of course. But before the second and the sixth Doctor connect, the second Doctor is bragging about how his Gallifreyan counterparts, the scientists, the Gallifreyan scientists, would be causing a commotion because they would want his autograph should he return to Gallifrey. Now, Patrick Troughton is, of course, really good as the Doctor. In fact, actually, I find Colin's Doctor very similar in many regards to his Doctor, Patrick Troughton's, and William Hartnell, who played the first Doctor. Now, Troughton still very much has the buffoonery of his incarnation, which has the ability to snap with his temper as well and to be distressed with his "oh my giddy aunt" line that we know and love. His presence is almost like he'd never been away from the role at all. At actors, of course, can easily do that, especially if there's a role in our life that we really loved playing. And it's very clear that Charlton very much did like that role. He didn't outstay his time on the show, he kept it brief. And I think that adds to his likability when he returns to the role. It certainly led to his own son David being involved with the audio productions on a regular basis. And actually, it might explain why Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor, didn't often return to the role after that as well, because he did actually, in my opinion, stay too long. Now, back to Troughton. Troughton had very much been able to remain a character actor and jump right back into his role of the Doctor with ease. That much is very clear. It helps with a script writer like Robert Holmes, too, who certainly knew how to write for the Doctor and could do what any Doctor. You just had to keep the fundamentals the same and allow for a different trait to come forward with each incarnation, which is generally what happens across board. Not so much at the moment, I'm afraid to say, but then the writing is absolutely shocking. Now, Colin's Doctor, as I said, is very much akin to the earlier Doctors, and I maintain that stance. Whilst I know that he is not a popular Doctor, his version carries the same abruptness, but I find him to be quite pragmatic in his trait. Yes, he is very much louder than the past Doctors, which is very much the intention and what JNT wanted, but he brought back the earlier fundamentals as well, and that was really a very big risk to take, particularly off the back of Peter Davison, who was a lot calmer as the Doctor. Now, Baker's Doctor, Colin Baker's Doctor, that is, like Troughton's, is very clearly alien. I think that a lot of the things that he did in the series were purposefully done so because he's an alien. His reaction to the surroundings would have been different from others from around him. So, that's what makes him alien. What part of builds up his fundamentals for his version of the Doctor. Now, for example, there is a bit where Perry is really not comprehending the scale of how long it really would take for the universe to blow up. She thinks the Doctor is being dramatic because to her, well, a few centuries is a long time, whereas to him, because he's so old, it's like the blink of an eye. Now, he actually doesn't pull her up on that. He may have done in earlier episodes, but he really doesn't in this one. And he accepts what she says, and he just carries on while she goes off to look for Jamie. One thing I really didn't like was him smacking Jamie's hand away from the console. I wasn't too keen on that, but I suppose in some respects it is fitting within his Doctor to have done that, especially so early on in the regeneration. Now, both Doctors in this episode are just as snappy as each other, yes, but I think that Colin pulled it back a bit to allow for Troughton's portrayal to be more the fundamentals. As I said, the second Doctor, he is more close to the earliest Doctor, the first Doctor, William Hartnell. You can't forget that or overpower the other actor that came before you. You need to allow their portrayal to be the same as it was, so that, other people who know who he is are like, yes, that's him, that's the Doctor. Now, Baker does actually do that, and I think they bounce off each other very nicely. And it was almost quite comical in a way, as there are only two of them. You can play around with it, and they're not fighting for the screen time. In fact, there's not many scenes with them together at all, because everything that's happening to the Sixth Doctor is happening in his past and it's affecting him in present day. You know me, though. I love the Sixth Doctor. Totally alien, almost barbaric, snappy, but not contemptuous, pragmatic. And even if it doesn't look like they get along, he does actually have priorities with making sure that his companion is very much safe and well. The downside to the two Doctors, though, is that it takes 9 minutes to bring him into the story. Although that's not actually really a bad thing, because they really do actually need to set up the story in order for the entire episode to work in those 9 minutes. So maybe just ignore that remark. But thankfully, we didn't see the sonic screwdriver even. Now, 6C, Colin's Doctor doesn't have one anyway, but 2 actually did. But Thank goodness we didn't see it. So the second Doctor gets Doctor napped by a creepy looking hand, and this is where I have my first down with the story. Now, it's not a massive down, but after the sixth Doctor and Perry suspect that this is a setup against the Time Lords, we later get a reveal, that it was a Sontaran, that the Sontarans are in the story. However, the reveal was, well, he was just there. There was no big reveal. We have the creepy hand, and then, oh, it's a Sontaran. Now, I don't know if that's because the Sontarans are working in partnership with the Androgams and they're not that impactful to the plot, but the Sontarans are pretty big boiled potatoes in the Doctor Who universe, and they should really have had a bigger reveal than that. And it was just a bit of, well, it was a bit of a letdown, really, more than anything. Now, Colin's era was plagued with episode lengths being muddled around. The Two Doctors is 3 45-minute episodes, but with the story, they were not really that pushed for time, and the pacing of it is actually really, really good. There's a whole section where they're doing an Amsterdam and running around Seville. I think that some of that could have been cut in order to reveal the Sontarans more epically. How they were defeated was pretty cool. The ideas behind it worked, but their reveal was just really lackluster in comparison to what we have seen in previous episodes with the Sontarans. I do like the Androgams as well. Shokai, who was chasing after the humans in Seville to dine on them. A simple idea more than anything, and the augmented Chastini, who was working with the Sontarans. I do understand why they have never been used again, and it was only that one. The ideas behind them are good, but because of their nature, they are best left to just one story. I would be wondering how far you could actually take these aliens before they actually get ridiculous and they start dismembering the population from limb to limb. The character of Dastari would have been a character that they could have used again had they not actually bumped him off. In fact, actually, they could have probably introduced him a lot earlier. Now, whilst he's not really an antagonist, his knowledge on genetic engineering would have been a really great contrast compared to how the Doctor views humanity. Perry also has some strength, doesn't she? She manages to knock Jamie out after he jumps her. Although I will probably say, because he's been there for several days, he was hungry, so he probably didn't have the energy to fight her off. I was also led to believe that Perry and the writers could predict the future. I'm not going to say what. I actually think you should rewatch the episode for yourselves. But she says something that was very astute and observant about the Sixth Doctor that I think a lot of people today would see and say perhaps about society itself. In actual fact, this episode, she says some really smart things and some silly things too. So, like when she is told to go and knock on their door as a distraction in the episode, to which she says, "But I don't speak Spanish," and the Doctor has to remind her that Androgams don't either. She also technically got both of the cliffhangers in this story too. Well, kind of, I say. She gets jumped and the Doctor gets gassed and passes out. And the second she trips when she's running away from Shokai and he makes to grab her. And that is actually really quite creepy as well. Jamie also has a few of his Jamie-isms. He is pretty much the same as ever, just he made me laugh when he thought he was going to actually get on a peck on a cheek by Anita. And Oscar's death, you know, that little side character, the actor, he was so he was so dramatic. The actor must have had a whale of time during that scene where he dies. He clearly was enjoying it. The writers are actually good at setting up resolutions early in the classic Who era, and they do it really well with Colin's Doctor, actually. They did it before, too, with the Mark of the Rani in the episode before. The writing or the writer, tells us in episode 2 that the symbiotic nuclei of the Doctor is needed for the time travel stabilization. The writing makes a point of actually making the Sixth Doctor the hero. It purposely locks up the Second Doctor in any way possible so that the Sixth Doctor has to work it out for himself. Now, I think as Colin's Doctor wasn't greatly received, that was actually really important. And what I mean by greatly received is not necessarily the public, it was also the powers at be. Now, of course, they would have had only a vague idea of that at the time, having only released the twin dilemma straight off the back of Davison's Last Era. Now, having said that, the Second Doctor being operated on to get the symbiotic nuclei, but having it interrupted was a great idea. The writing makes it look like the Sixth Doctor has saved his past self, but then he gets taken away, only for the Sixth Doctor to be captured by the Sontarans after he's done tinkering with the time machine. He then provides them with the symbiotic nuclei, making them believe that he has changed the machine for it to work. However, it turns out that he had actually sabotaged it, allowing for only one use to make them believe it. The resolution is a quote-unquote slow one. It's not slow, it's actually got quite a good pace, but compared to modern day stories, it really is slow. And it was all the Sixth Doctor because his second incarnation got himself into an absolute pickle. Now, I would have liked to have seen more time with Peri and the Second Doctor, but this is not a 4-parter, so we couldn't get that. And that's okay. It's just a thing that we have to deal with now. It's not depressing. I'm just saying that. So this episode was the lowest rated of his first series, and I often wonder why, because it's actually a well enough written story. Now, it could be that this was because of the purposeful conflict in the scheduling. We know that the scheduling was purposely reworked because of the dislike of the show from the powers of Michael Grade and his minions. They often say that it's a reflection on how people's thoughts on the previous episode are as well, which was, in this case, the Mark of the Rani, which actually I love as a story. I know some people don't hold much store with the Rani stories, and I get it. And I think for me, that lies much more with Sylvester's first story rather than the Mark of the Rani. The Mark of the Rani, in my opinion, alone couldn't have actually added to the low ratings of this story. I think other factors such as scheduling, the unpopularity of Michael Grade, people's thoughts and opinions on the Doctor all add to it as well. And I will do a deep dive into the firing of Colin Baker at some point within this channel because he was greatly snubbed, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You don't have to like him as the Doctor. His work with Big Finish actually proved beyond reasonable doubt, in my opinion, that he was very much well cast as the Doctor, but other powers behind the scenes were affecting his Doctor overall. That's all I'll say with regards to that for now, with the unceremonious firing of Colin Baker. There's what I think of the two Doctors. So if you are specifically here for Doctor Who only, then I release a Doctor Who video every Sunday at 4 p.m. and occasionally on Monday too, because it falls under the TV and movie category that I cover on a Monday. If you are here for everything, then I'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Like the video if you would like to. Subscribe also if you would like to. Leave a comment below. Tell me what I've missed out because I'm sure that I have missed out a million and one things. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to go and vote on the current poll. Bye-bye.